It's rivalry week in the SEC, and this week I'm bringing you a 4-course Thanksgiving podcast feast. This is our main course. It's the Iron Bowl. This is your entree round. How could it not get any better? Our first course was the Deviled Egg Bowl. The second course was the Black Friday Battle Line rivalry between Arkansas and Missouri. You know, kind of like you're battling in line for a cheap television. This is the third course, the main course, the entree. This is the Thanksgiving turkey, roasted or deep fried, whatever your preference, to perfection with all of the stuffing and cranberry sauce and mashed potatoes and gravy and some delicious dinner rolls just to get in there and sop it all up. I'm your host, Ben Warren. You're listening to the SEC Recap Podcast. Like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow the podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and get notified for the final course, the dessert pod of this SEC Rivalry Week Thanksgiving podcast feast. Follow us on Twitter at SEC Recap. Let's get into the matchup. The Iron Bowl. The Auburn Tigers head to Tuscaloosa to face the Alabama Crimson Tide. The game kicks off on Saturday at 2:30 p.m. Central Time on CBS. We all know Auburn is down somewhat this year, but the Iron Bowl is always the main course of the day when it's played. It's near impossible for it not to be because any given year, almost anything can happen. In 2021, Auburn came damn near an upset of Alabama, and it took a Bryce Young Heisman caliber miracle to get the Tide a 24-22 victory that took four overtimes. Alabama was 10-1, Auburn was 6-5. This is the Iron Bowl, the main course. This is what you wake up thinking about on Thanksgiving, the turkey with all the fixins. Each year, Auburn and Alabama compete for the FOI, VODK. It stands for like FOI, the Fifth Omega Delta Chrome, some fraternity sportsmanship trophy, which is hilarious because this is one of, if not the most heated rivalry in all of sports. These two teams hate one another. In the state of Alabama, you basically have to declare on your baby's birth certificate whether they're an Auburn or an Alabama fan. And believe me, I live here now, was not born and raised here, but I've lived here for a couple years now. It's one of the first things people will tell you about themselves and one of the first things they'll ask about you. Alabama or Auburn? I even heard an older woman use Roll Tide, I swear to you, as a greeting to people joining them at a restaurant for Sunday lunch. To which the joining party replied, again, I'm not even joking, oh, Roll Tide to you too. This rivalry began in 1893 and is streaked with notably epic games. 2010 gave us the comeback. That was the Cam Newton-led Auburn comeback from a 24-0 deficit to win 28-27 in Tuscaloosa. It was the largest comeback in series history. Auburn fans put a Cam Newton jersey on Bear Bryant's statue, and then an Alabama fan named Harvey Updike poisoned the iconic 200-year-old oak trees on Auburn's campus. When he was asked about it, Updike explained, I just wanted Auburn people to hate me as much as I hate them. Well, that dude got 6 months in jail, 5 years probation, and he was ordered to pay $800,000 in restitution. Folks, that's a rivalry. In 2013, the infamous Kick 6 game. The game was tied with 1 second left, and Alabama attempted a 57-yard field goal. Auburn put Chris Davis in the back of the end zone to catch the kick in case it fell short. Well, the kick was short, and Davis returned it 109 yards for a touchdown as time expired. Alabama leads this series 48-37-1, and it has won 7 of the last 10. Let's look at the stats. On offense, Auburn, the number 90 scoring offense in the country, 24 points a game, 377 yards per game. They've got the number 115th passing offense. Not good, just 181 yards a game, 8 passing touchdowns on the year. And they have the number 31 rushing offense, 191 yards a game, 23 rushing touchdowns on the year. They do have 12 interceptions, and they've lost 8 out of 24 fumbles. That's like more than 2 fumbles a game. Not good. Alabama, meanwhile, number 5 in the country in scoring offense. The Tide averages 40 points per game. They're putting up 471 yards a game. They've got the number 27 pass offense and the number 25 rushing offense. Very, very balanced. They're gaining 272 through the air. They've got 29 passing touchdowns. They're gaining almost 200 yards a game on the ground, 21 rushing touchdowns. They've got 7 picks and lost 8 fumbles. Offensive advantage here, very clearly going to Alabama. On defense, Auburn, number 85 in the country in terms of scoring defense. Tigers average just 27 points allowed, and they're giving up 384 yards per game. Very, very bad pass defense, number 120, allowing 211 yards. They've given up 17 touchdowns through the air. And the number 49 rushing defense, 172 yards a game. They've given up 24 rushing touchdowns. They do have 5 picks and have recovered 7 fumbles. Alabama, meanwhile, number 11 in the country in scoring defense. Tide averages 17 points allowed and 300 yards a game. They've got the number 27 pass D and the number 14 run defense. They've given up just 11 touchdowns through both the air and on the ground. Defensive advantage here also going to Alabama. Key injuries, can't find much for Auburn. Again, as I've said on the first and the second course pods this week, the Egg Bowl and the Battle Line rivalry, doing these early in the week, so I cannot find the most up-to-date injury information. But for Alabama, to the best of my knowledge, it looks like Tyler Steen, who's a starting left tackle, is very questionable with an ankle injury, might even be doubtful. Cameron Latu, that starting tight end, really, really good tight end, also questionable with an ankle. And Jahmyr Gibbs, questionable with an ankle. But Jace McClellan, as we'll see a little bit later, doing just fine in place of Jahmyr Gibbs. So key players for Auburn, it's going to be Tank Bigsby. I'm not expecting much out of Robbie Ashford. He's just too inexperienced right now and going up against such a good defense. They're going to need to lean on the ground game as best they can and get Tank Bigsby going. That's going to be their best shot at opening up anything through the pass game. For Alabama, every time he steps on this field, I'm going to talk about him. Bryce Young, he's a phenom. He's a star. He's putting that team on his shoulders. He's going to have a big game. And then running back Jace McClellan stepping in for Jahmyr Gibbs. He's a different kind of back than Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe more of a traditional type of Alabama back that you'd look for. Doing just fine there, stepping into that role. So what this game comes down to, it's Auburn's offensive line. They've allowed 28 sacks on the season. That's 2.5 a game. Versus an Alabama defense and a pass rush that has 32 sacks on the year, which is 2.9 sacks per game. It makes me feel like it's going to be a long, difficult evening for Robbie Ashford. Meanwhile, Alabama has all of the offensive weapons they need to dismantle Auburn's defense. ESPN's FBI has Alabama favored at a 94.5% chance to win versus Auburn at a 5.5% chance to win. The spread is huge. It favors Alabama minus 25.5, as does the money line, minus 2,000. The over-under is at 49, and the team totals have Alabama at 34 and Auburn at 14. Both of these teams are 5-6 against the spread. I'll choose to avoid the spread in this game because of the nature of this rivalry and some of the unexpected outcomes it's had. 49 over under initially strikes me as low, but I do worry about Auburn's ability to score and, as I mentioned, the lack of experience at quarterback in such a big game. All right, my final prediction. I love what Auburn has done the last 2 weeks under interim coach Cadillac Williams. They're certainly playing more inspired and more cohesively. But this ain't a movie. And playing with heart doesn't compensate for an extreme mismatch in talent and scheme. Despite Alabama's deficiencies this season, they are superior to Auburn in both personnel and scheme. Alabama has not lost to Auburn in Tuscaloosa since 2006, when Auburn was nearing the end of a 6-game winning streak that lasted from 2002 to 2007. So I'm taking Alabama outright here, 34, Auburn 14. That's 20 points. Maybe Auburn covers that 21.5, but Alabama gonna win it handily, in my opinion. Before I give you the rest of my Week 13 predictions, don't forget to check out our merch, bonfire.com/store/SEC recap. I've got awesome SEC Pride merch for each SEC team. Again, you could get all our content on secrecap.com, but wait, I still got to give you the rest of my Week 13 predictions. These are all the games that I am not recording a podcast exclusively for this week. First up, Florida at Florida State. I think Florida State is objectively a better team, and they do get the Gators at home. So give me FSU 31-24, but maybe Florida covers that 9.5 point spread. Next, we got Georgia Tech at Georgia. This game should be a blowout. I don't know if Georgia covers the spread. It's a huge spread, 36 points. But I think they could cover that. And I think 42-7 sounds about right to me. Then we've got South Carolina at Clemson. Hear me out here, and I'm not going to go into detail. The Tennessee game was a fluke. Just like Georgia in 2019. It happens, freakishly it happens. It doesn't mean that South Carolina has suddenly put it all together. I'm not buying that. I think Tennessee gave them as much as they took in this game. I think Clemson, much better defense. They win by a couple scores and maybe even keep the Gamecocks under 20 points. Give me Clemson 33, South Carolina 17. Next up, we got Louisville traveling to Lexington to face Kentucky for their interstate rivalry. Kentucky has turned just awful in the back half of the season. Louisville isn't very good. I think this game will be ugly and close, but it is in Lexington, so I'm still going to take the Wildcats, maybe by a field goal. Ugly, low-scoring affair, 20-17 Kentucky. Final game on this lineup, I've got LSU at Texas A&M. Now, you might be asking, well, hey, this is an SEC matchup. Why didn't you do a podcast for this one? There's not a really deep, rich SEC rivalry here. A&M came into the SEC with Missouri, back in 2013, 2014. I know these two teams have played since the, early 1900s across conference and out of conference. But there's not really a compelling rivalry between these two teams, in my personal opinion. So to me, this could just shape up to be a decent, worthwhile SEC game. So LSU has to go to College Station, but they're such a more complete team than Texas A&M. There's not even a chance for A&M to get bowl eligible here. They only have 4 wins on the season, and LSU is playing now for the college football playoff. I'm not saying it won't be the game, but LSU should win by at least 10. Give me LSU 27, Texas A&M 17. That's gonna do it for this episode. If you enjoyed this content, follow us on Twitter at SEC Recap. Get all of our content at secrecap.com. Like, subscribe to the podcast. We're available everywhere you prefer to chug your podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, like, subscribe to the channel. It helps us reach more SEC fans. Guys, have a great Thanksgiving week. Enjoy the rest of our SEC rivalry episodes, and I hope all of you have a great week of food, friends, family, and football. Thanks for listening to the SEC Recap Podcast.